goes by the name of Josiah Baker. He's the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Tennessee. And for years, Josiah has been tirelessly fighting for the rights of Tennesseans, including the First and Second Amendment rights. So if y'all could give a round of hands here for Josiah Baker.
Thank you for that introduction. Glad everybody made it. Glad the weather cooperated. This is a much more beautiful day than we had originally had planned back in icy January, as we all remember. Again, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. I'm going to go preacher mode here. I promise you don't want to be within spitting range. But my name is Josiah Baker. I am chairman of the Libertarian Party of Tennessee. I have been for the past year. And I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of awesome people from all different thought spectrums. And one of the reasons I'm glad to be here today is because I see people I know, see people I just met today, yesterday, then the past week, throughout the year. And one of the things I got to admit, I did struggle with what I was going to talk about because I am not an expert educator. We have great advocates in our midst here that can recite to you year, make, model of every firearm if you throw them flashcards. I am not that guy. I'm not a vet. I'm not a first responder. But I am a citizen. I'm a citizen just like you are. And what happens to a lot of us with discussions of gun rights and gun ownership is we self-censor ourselves out of ignorance. We self-censor ourselves because we don't feel educated on a topic, and the first thing we do is we minimize that discussion, when in reality everybody has a place at the table to discuss these things, as we well know, whether you're informed or not. So I do encourage conversation and discussion. If you've noticed, the temperature outside here might be getting warmer, but we keep the temperature cool here in conversation. You're in good company here. A well-armed society is a polite society, as we like to say. And if anyone here is passing through in these tour groups that are passing through all these things, if anyone has questions, I encourage you to find someone in a shirt or in a button, engage them in conversation, whether you agree with them or not. This is about open dialogue, about learning from each other. And, I had to look in the mirror this morning and come to grips with that myself. There are things that I don't know. There are things that I don't pretend to know. But I will ask and get an answer. With this, again, I do stress the word conversation. I do believe it's so easy to talk past each other than engage in civil discourse. And trust me, I do understand that there is a time and place for not civil discourse. We don't want things to get to that point. That's why we're holding this rally. I hope today is not that day. It's apparent that we have people here from all sides of the issue. And likely the majority of us that are here today or be passing through are not going to change our minds right now. But that's not what this is about. This is about dialogue. This is about conversation and understanding where everyone comes from. Because you're the summation of your life experience. And these discussions, whether we like it or not, a lot of my friends on the right love to talk about facts and logic. When it comes to guns, these are 100% emotional discussions. And if we're having two different discussions in two different languages of facts and logic and emotional reaction, we're going to continue to yell at each other. And all we're going to get is deaf from doing that. Deaf, not death. This is normal, and it's incumbent on us to be responsible when we discuss with each other. Now, I think it is a bit of a lost art form in society today, having these discussions. As you've noticed, all the speakers so far and throughout the day are very professional in the way that they present themselves. We pride ourselves in LPTN and with tnta. We can make eye contact and hold an adult conversation with you, and that's pretty important. Now, with the emotional discussions of what must we do, we all know the atrocities that have happened here and abroad, mass violence, these shootings in schools, all these things, and it is absolutely 100% the reaction that we have to do something. That's always the catchphrase. I see it on shirts, I see it on flags, I see it on handwritten banners. We have to do something. Me personally, I'm terrified of the "we have to do something" slogan. And just a couple examples of why I'm terrified of that. I've seen some of the most catastrophic destruction of our liberties as citizens in America come from that slogan, "We have to do something." I mean, look at how we saw the Fourth Amendment completely obliterated and gutted post 9/11. with the Patriot Act. We had to do something. So what did we do? We destroyed the Fourth Amendment and take away, unreasonable search and seizure. We are all used to that, which, by the way, caveat, it does still blow my mind that you will get randomly picked out for a tube of toothpaste in your bag, and we'll put it in a bin as everybody walks by for the entire shift because it might be a bomb instead of, I guess that's how we treat possible bombs, is we put it right in the walkway in the trash bin at the airport. That's what we do. This is a well, we got to do something method. The other big one that we see of we have to do something is how we saw this beautiful city that we're in, Nashville. A couple years ago, we saw it overnight shut down, and many artists, musicians, entertainers, gig workers, bar staff were told overnight, you do not matter to society. You're not essential. You're not part of polite society. You will be scorned. Do not come out in public. Meanwhile, the people that make these edicts right down the street conveniently were able to see their day-to-day pleasures and get their haircuts and do their social gatherings and rules for me and not for thee. This was a as we look at it in reverse, we had to do something. And what did they do? We created two parts of society, the clean and the unclean. In retrospect, they had us dancing on one foot, doing pseudoscience that did absolutely nothing, but we had to do something. And so these are a couple examples of why we have to do something mentality. I kind of pump the brakes and let's discuss this. Because doing something doesn't mean it's a net positive or a net negative. It simply means that something has happened. And it's not just A plus B equals C. It's an A plus B equals the entire alphabet of variables. And we don't know what happens until that, pardon the pun, we pull the trigger on doing something. For those of my friends that are advocating for policy of gun control, I often hear, we need common sense solutions. And this is another slogan that looks good on a bumper sticker. But I'm constantly wary of who are the arbiters of what is common sense, because common sense to me might mean one thing, common sense to you might mean another. And here we go again. We have our better angels of society making choices for how we protect our property, our family, and ourselves. And these things should not be taken lightly. These things should not be abdicated to people that live in suits and nice air-conditioned offices with private security while you live in society. So I like the thought experiment of what does this look like if we go this route, because let's be serious, it's not just about automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons, most of which folks can't determine the difference between. The end result of this is confiscation, if we're being honest. This is what people want. And show of hands, everyone that has went through either private or public school education, and you did have to crack open a history book, someone named some great societies throughout history that went through gun control and confiscation. Just give me the leader or the country. Anyone. I'll start. Mao Zedong. How did that go? That went great, right? USSR, another one. That went great. You can go right down. World War II Germany. Complete firearm confiscations and taking weapons away from innocent, law-abiding citizens who only have the interest in protecting them and theirs. It leads to tyranny. It's a slow boil that becomes a hot flare. And we already know this. New York City, yes. Try going to New York City right now. Try it. It's not a fun time, trust me. I used to tour with bands, and it is not fun. I won't be back anytime soon. This is the natural progression. That's what this policy leads to. And I understand the emotional need. There are people that have lost friends, loved ones. And I have to say, in this discussion, all of us actually agree on the fact, the basic boiled down premise here. We do not want innocents to be, subject to criminal activity, violent harm. We want people to be able to live peacefully and in harmony. These are things that all of us agree with, and if we don't, we might need to have another discussion. But these are things that all citizens agree on. The problem is when we try to implement how we get there. And I'm just a huge proponent, me, myself, and my brethren and sister in Libertarian Party of Tennessee, we do not believe that gun control laws are the way to get there. We just don't. We already heard from great speakers that talk about education, being responsible over your liberties, and that's a huge thing that we need to see and normalize. Remove the stigma that is ownership of firearms. The last thing I will say towards this would be that one of my favorite speakers, Thomas Sowell, has a great quote that in the instance of a problem, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. So a solution of we have X policy that's going to solve B problem, it doesn't solve an issue, it rather splinters into other issues that you are forever trying to put out. And it creates a horrible cycle. And the last excerpt I'll read before I bring up my friend to just have a back and forth here, there's a great article that I heard on the way down here, and I decided to interject it. It's called The Gun is Civilization by Major L. Caudle. And he says that human beings only have two ways to deal with one another, reason and force. If you want me to do something for you, you have a choice of either convincing me via argument or force me to do your bidding under threat of force. Every human interaction falls into one of these two categories without exception, reason or force. That's it. That is the human condition. In a truly moral and civilized society, people exclusively interact through persuasion. Force has no place as a valid method of social interaction, and the only thing that removes force from the menu is the personal firearm, as paradoxical as it may sound to some. When I carry a gun, you cannot deal with me by force. You have to use reason to try to persuade me because I have a way to negate your threat or employment of force. The gun is the only personal weapon that puts a 100-pound woman on equal footing with a 250-pound mugger, a 75-year-old retiree on equal footing with a 19-year-old gangbanger, and a single guy on equal footing with a carload of drunken guys with baseball bats. The gun removes the disparity in physical strength, size, or numbers between a potential attacker and a defender. There are plenty of people who consider the gun as a source of bad force equations. These are the people who think that we'd be more civilized if all guns were removed from society because a firearm makes it easier for an armed mugger to do his job. That, of course, is only true if the mugger's potential victim is mostly disarmed either by choice or by legislative fiat. It has no validity when most of a mugger's potential marks are armed. People who argue for the banning of arms ask for automatic rule by the young, the strong, and the many, and that's the exact opposite of a civilized society. A mugger, even an armed one, can only make a successful living in a society where the state has granted him a force monopoly. Then there's the argument that the gun makes confrontations lethal that otherwise would only result in injury. The argument is fallacious in several ways. Without guns involved, confrontations are won by the physical superior party, inflicting overwhelming injury on the loser. People who think that fists, bats, sticks, or stones don't constitute lethal force watch too much TV where people take beatings and come out with merely a hurt wrist or a bloody nose. The fact that the gun makes lethal force easier works solely in favor of the weaker defender, not the stronger attacker. If both are armed, the field is in fact level. The gun is the only weapon that's as lethal in the hands of an octogenarian as it is in the hands of a weightlifter. It simply wouldn't work as well as a force equalizer if it wasn't both lethal and easily employable. When I carry a gun, I don't do so because I am looking for a fight, but because I am looking to be left alone. The gun at my side means that I cannot be forced, only persuaded. I don't carry it because I'm afraid, but because it enables me to be unafraid. It doesn't limit the actions of those who would interact with me through reason, only the acts of those who would do so by force. It removes force from the equation, and that's why carrying a gun is a civilized act. Now, for those, it's a beautiful excerpt. I'll give that to everyone that wants it. There are 1,000 of these beautiful tropes that are eloquently written that I highly recommend you pore over, meditate over, because these are things that come up in these conversations. These conversations are vital. And for those here that may be watching at home that might feel we see these rallies, we see these things, and folks really, there's a majority coming along that are really talking about wanting to take the guns and whatnot. Friends, I have a little secret for you. If you looked at the history of society, you do not need a majority to move the needle on public opinion, on policy, on persuasion. It's a lie. It's a lie that we're taught from our textbooks, that we need a majority to do things. A well-organized and well-motivated minority will forever lead society by the nose in the direction that it wants to employ. So if you are here today, if you are here at home, you are part of the organized minority on gun ownership, on self-ownership, and thank you so much.